the servants here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the king, the public weal, peace and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please be seated. All right. Good morning, everyone. This is a call to order the meeting of the Senate, Friday, October the 18th, 2024. Before we proceed further into the agenda, I'd seek the Senate's permission to allow Senator Janice Allen to appear online. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. Good morning, Senator Allen. Not hearing you at all. All right. As you would have noted from last week, our president has been absent. He's also absent today. And as I had indicated last week, that he was traveling on official business and attended Geneva in Switzerland in respect to our renewal of membership in the Inter-parliamentary Union. And the Prime Minister, leader of the opposition, and leaders of government and opposition business in both houses were aware that the Jamaican Parliament was seeking readmission to the Inter-parliamentary Union, the oldest and largest association of national parliaments in the world. Our parliament was previously a member of the IPU from 1983 to 1987. And we are pleased to announce that our application was favorably considered by the General Council of the IPU, and we were readmitted on Monday, October 14, 2024, during the 149th IPU Assembly, where our Parliament was represented by the President of the Senate, Senator the Honorable Thomas Tavares Finson. I also wish to put on record, having regard to what would have transpired in the Oversight Committee in this Parliament on October the 15th, 2024, and which has been widely publicized during the sitting of the Oversight Committee that has responsibility for the Integrity Commission. And our President had put out a statement in that regard, and I wish to read it into the record. So the President of the Senate, the Honorable Thomas Tavares Finson, OJ, CD, JP, KC, is strongly rebuking the Chairman of the Integrity Commission, retired Justice Seymour Panton, who on Tuesday, October 15, 2024, suggested that reports and/or information from the Integrity Commission might have leaked into the public domain via the Parliament of Jamaica. The President says he is confident that the integrity of the processes of Parliament that Parliament observes concerning the confidentiality of reports prior to tabling is beyond reproach. And for my own commentary, although I sit as Deputy President, several reports from the Integrity Commission has come to this Parliament, and our President has never, on any occasion, mentioned to me what the contents of those reports were. So I stand in support of his comments as made. And I believe that the comments which were made impugns the integrity, not only of the leaders of the Senate and the lower house, but also the clerk and the officers of the Parliament. And I have had discussions with our clerk, and she's also of the same view, that from her office and those around her, that she's confident that processes that ensures confidentiality of the reports have been maintained. In respect to other comments that have been made, where retired Justice Panton's comment at the meeting of Parliament's Integrity Commission Oversight Committee on Tuesday, October 15, 2024, when he questioned whether there is some contamination of water consumed by parliamentarians and further recommended psychiatric evaluation of parliamentarians. That comment is rude, offensive, and out of order. And the President says Justice Panton should introspect and offer a suitably worded apology to the Parliament for his disrespectful and contemptuous comments. And as his deputy, I support his statement, his views, his comments in respect to those issues. Statement by ministers. Statement, Senator Brown. Senator Brown.
Permission to speak from a seat other than my own.
Permission is granted. Yeah. And
I note the statement from the President.
Yes, and I'm not taking, it's not for debate, you know.
I'm not trying to debate. I'm just making a recommendation. Unlike you who have associated yourself with it, and it's not for debate, I'd certainly wish to recommend to the leadership of the Parliament that you seek an audience with the Commission and address these issues, because what we don't want is that he said, she said, they say,
thank you,
back and forth.
Thank you, Senator.
So I make that
thank
recommendation on behalf of the opposition.
Thank you, Senator.
That decency ought to be the guide that leads us.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Statement by ministers. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the Senate are the following: annual report and audited financial statements of the All-Island Jamaica Cane Farmers Association for the year ended September 30, 2020, and its related ministry paper numbered 75 of 2024. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Agro-Investment Corporation for the period 2021-2022 and its related ministry paper numbered 76 of 2024. Reports of the Commission of Inquiry into the emoluments of judges of the parish courts and other specified officers 2023. The Integrity Commission report of investigation into concerns that Mr. Michael Asher Phillips, a Member of Parliament, failed to file his statutory declaration with the Integrity Commission for the year 2022 in breaches of the Integrity Commission Act and its ruling. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Hazardous Substances Regulatory Authority for the financial year 2018-2019. annual report and audited financial statements of the Consumer Affairs Commission for the financial year 2020-2021. By way of information, reports of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee on its deliberations on the first supplementary estimates for the financial year ending March 31, 2025. The Government of Jamaica Fiscal Policy Paper for the financial year 2024-2025 interim report and the Jamaica Public Body's first supplementary estimates of revenues for the year ending March 2025. Finally, the second interim report of the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee on its deliberations on the 2023-2024 annual report and other reports of the Integrity Commission. Thank you, Mr. President.
I
Senator
note
Brown.
that there's an interim report from the Oversight Committee. And since you mentioned the activity of the Oversight Committee, while I note that's only distributed to the House, are hard copies available? Because I'm seeing here 70 copies printed. Is a copy available
I think
here?
it's our copies were circulated. Copies are
Sure?
circulated,
All right,
Senator
cool.
Brown.
Thanks.
All right, bills brought from the Honorable House of Representatives.
The following is a message from the Speaker of the House of Representatives. To the Honorable Senate, I have the honor to advise the Honorable Senate that on the 16th day of October 2024, a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Financial Services Commission Act was passed in the House of Representatives with 5 amendments. Juliet Holness, MP, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Mr. President, on behalf of Senator Hill, I signify willingness to take charge of the bill.
A bill shortly entitled the Financial Services Commission Amendment Act 2024 read a first time.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice of second reading of the bill.
Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to sittings of the Senate, motions for leave to introduce bills, presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained, public business.
Mr. President, on the agenda today, it was stated that at public business, we would not only pursue the debate to conclusion on the Judicature Rules of Court Amendment Act, but we would also conclude the motion in relation to legislation on the elderly, which had been tabled by Senator Morris. And just to notice that, of course, in his absence, we will not proceed with the latter matter. We would, of course, prefer for him to be here for that debate to continue. And given that amendments had, in fact, been agreed at the last point in time when that matter was debated, we know it won't be contentious. It's just a matter of timing. I make note of the fact that we had been ready to proceed last week as well. And I only make that point because I know in my absence, he has raised the point about the matter not being on the agenda. So I just wish it to be made clear that we're ready to proceed and we do want to take forward that important piece of, the important motion for debate by this House. The other matter to be taken on the agenda today, the bill entitled An Act to Amend the Judicature Rules of Court Act, is the matter which is now before us. And I very much look forward to us taking forward this bill today. It is intended, Mr. President, to add the holder of the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to the membership of the Rules Committee of the Supreme Court to enable the DPP to participate in the preparation of the rules of court applicable to both the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal. Senators would be aware that the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal are established by the Constitution, and their jurisdiction is outlined in the Judicature Supreme Court Act and the Judicature Appellate Jurisdiction Act, respectively. But to guide the procedure by which the courts operate, having been created under those acts, the Judicature Rules of Court Act was also passed. And Section 3 of that Act establishes a Rules Committee of the Supreme Court. Among others, Section 4 of that Act allows for the creation of rules of the court that make provision for A, regulating and prescribing the procedure and the practices to be followed by the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, respectively, in all causes and matters whatsoever, and B, the matter in which and the time within which, the manner in which and the time within which any applications, appeals, or references which under any law or enactment may or are to be made. So, Mr. President, Senators will also recall that the passage of the Judicature Appellate Jurisdiction Amendment Act 2021 importantly granted the Director of Public Prosecutions the right to appeal. The DPP has the right to appeal a verdict of acquittal in criminal proceedings where there has been an administration of justice offense, or where a decision by the trial judge is erroneous on a point of law or on a point of mixed law and fact, and also they have the right to appeal a sentence imposed in criminal proceedings where the sentence is materially less than the generally expected and accepted level of sentence for the offense concerned, having regard to any sentencing guidelines applicable to the offense concerned. I know Senators recall the game-changing nature of this legislation granting a right which had never before existed in the interests of and pursuit of justice. Mr. President, as required under the Judicature Rules of Court Act, rules are being drafted that will, among other things, regulate the procedure that's necessary for the DPP to exercise the right of appeal. However, Mr. President, the composition of the Rules Committee, as set out in the schedule of the Act, doesn't include the Director of Public Prosecutions as a member of that committee. The Rules Committee is comprised of a number of ex officio members, namely the Chief Justice, President of the Court of Appeal, a Judge of the Supreme Court appointed by the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, and the Director of State Proceedings, as well as 5 attorneys at law in private practice who are appointed by the Minister on the nomination of the Bar Council. Notably missing is the DPP. So it has been recognized as clearly suboptimal that while rules in respect of appeals, in particular, by the DPP are being drafted, the DPP is not empowered to make contributions towards the preparations of these rules. And the chairman of the Rules Committee has therefore expressed the desire to include the DPP as a member of the committee. It should be noted, of course, Mr. President, that in addition to the rules regarding the right to appeal, there are other rules that are being contemplated that may have an impact on the office of the DPP. For example, the rules related to criminal case management, which are to be updated, as well as digital audio and audiovisual evidence recording in criminal matters. The DPP is currently not afforded the opportunity to offer contributions towards the preparation of these rules of court either. And this bill therefore seeks to ensure that the DPP may participate in the work of the committee as a member. Mr. President, it should also be noted that under the Act as it stands, the Minister is not granted the power to amend the schedule by order, subject to affirmative resolution. And the inclusion of such a provision will facilitate timely amendment of schedules. It's for this reason, of course, that it has become a feature of newer and more modern pieces of legislation, recognizing the efficiencies that it brings. So the bill is therefore seeking to give the Minister the power to amend the schedule by order, subject to affirmative resolution. Mr. President, this is a very short bill. I'll take us very quickly through the clauses. Clause 1 provides that the bill shall be read and construed as one with the Principal Act. Clause 2 proposes an amendment to Section 3 by empowering the Minister to amend the schedule of the Principal Act by order, subject to affirmative resolution. Clause 3 proposes to amend paragraph 1A of the schedule of the Principal Act to include the DPP in the list of members that form part of the Rules Committee. And Clause 3 also proposes to amend the schedule by inserting a new subparagraph which grants the chairman of the committee the power to, on an ad hoc basis, invite a person who is not a member of the committee to assist the committee in any matter related to the work of the committee. Another provision, of course, to improve the effective work of that body. Mr. President, this matter is uncontroversial, granting clear improvements to the effectiveness of the rules-making committee, in turn expected to positively impact the efficiency of management of matters before the court, as requested by those who are in fact charged with this process. So I look forward to the support of colleagues on both sides, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Lambert-Brown.
Thank you, President. Normally when we have a short bill, we have a long sitting. I believe because I am in this chair today, we're going to have a short sitting. President, President, just let me clarify one thing. Minister, in respect to the resolution, last night I got a message from Senator Morris indicating that he wasn't feeling well. Yeah, but he was going to come, nevertheless. This morning the message read, the situation has gotten worse. So this is the only reason why he's not present. And last week he was traveling, he was in Grenada on a matter. So it's not in any way an effort to delay. In fact, Senator Golden, he sent me your amendment, which he more or less had agreed with you on. So I hope that when we come back again, Senator Morris will be well enough to play his part in the motion in respect to the elderly. We had planned, President, that Council Fraser Binns would be our lead speaker on this bill today. But she too is tied up in an engagement elsewhere. And I'm sure, subject to the speed limit on the road, she'll be trying to leave that engagement and come here. In the meantime, I'll simply say this. The opposition finds no disagreement with the bill. However, Minister, as you pointed out, this bill is responding in part, maybe a small part, to the fact that the right to appeal has been given to the DPP, which means that potentially more cases are likely to go to the courts. What strikes us on this side is the state of the courts in which these rules are going to be drafted. And the state of our courts, if I may borrow from a former transport operator, Ezra Miller, the state of our court seems to be in a chronic. Just this week, on all angles, they had the Minister of Justice, you had the Chief Justice speaking to the state of our courts. There have been threats from the staff in the courts. There have been photographs and videos of the dilapidated state of several court buildings throughout the country. And so we're putting in this new wine, so to speak, in old wineskin. And as we put in this new wine, I would hope that we can pay some attention to bring in the worst cases in the court, physical condition, up to some level of decency. Just like getting bathrooms fixed, urinals, toilets, dealing with the flooding as we see in Spanish Town this week. So I hope that we're not just adding to the Rules Committee, but we're going to pay attention to the physical conditions in which those who the rules of the court must guide have to operate. President, some years ago, I had reason to visit Trinidad and Tobago on an ILO mission. Not Geneva this time, Port of Spain. They took us to the industrial court, which is akin, although it's a court of record, to our industrial dispute tribunal. Minister, I was amazed at the modern facilities in their industrial courts. A court set up first in the 70s in Trinidad. Microphone, proper seating. When I contrast that to having sat in a coroner's court in Spanish Town, early 2000, and the difficulty just to judge hearing counsels. When I compare that, Minister, with sitting in the jury box in 2009 in the Spanish Town Circuit Court, and then got called last year as juror. So I took a letter from the clerk saying, under the Jury Act, I am exempt. But the judge kept me there a little longer while he deliberated on my exemption. And I discerned that he really wanted me to see the conditions. When I compared 2009, sitting in the same jury box, and 2023, sitting in the box waiting to be exempt, you could see palpable the deterioration in the state of the courthouse. The chairs rotting, overcrowded. And then my mind raced back to Trinidad and said, they can do this for their industrial court. Why can't we do it for our Supreme Court, where I have had to go, not as counsel, as you pointed out last week, but as a litigant. Terrible condition our judges, our prosecutors, our defendant, all the users of the court have to face. Minister, I had reason also to go over to the Court of Appeal on a matter. Thankfully to Justice Panton, so I have to be kind to him, I couldn't find a seat, even though my name was on the documents in the case. So he called me into the inner sanctum and gave me a seat there. The reality is, did he give you some water? No water. No water. The reality is that our court system is outdated. It's not people-friendly. In many ways, it's archaic. And because Sophia is in Center, Fraser Beans is here, issues like the record keeping, notes of evidence. So I hope that the addition to the rules, where the DPP find that cases are kicked out in the Court of Appeal because of the absence of steno notes, that her presence there, her presence there, and I'll say something about that, will lead to the improvements. The improvement in the facilities, in the conditions that our people who go to court face, and the space that is available in court. The day I went, there are students of Norman Manley there as part of their court assignment. So it was no space at all in this cramped Court of Appeal chamber. So I urge the government, as we not oppose this, to do more, not in talking, not just in the amount of money you spend. Because as I explained to Senator Crawford, it's not how much you spend. It is the outcome of what you spend. It's the outcome of what you spend. Does it show up? Because nobody can, like the river, the water, rain came down the other day and all the water run to the sea. Not much of it to the reservoirs. So it's not the amount that you spend. And we have a situation where there are more crimes being committed now in the country than in 2012. Even with your 19% reduction in murders. So there are more people going into the courts for which the rules have to be developed. President, I have an issue with the rules. Because the rules have to come back to the Parliament for, I believe, negative resolution. I see now you're putting affirmative in certain cases and not changing the schedule. You see, I say that because we read the laws and decide. If you made that criticism, President, of people saying parliamentarians don't read the law, I would gladly join you. Because we on this side, as demonstrated by so many legislation that we have challenged, do read the law. So I want to make it clear. We on this side set out to read the legislation, understand them, challenge them, and make recommendations for amendment because we read the law. So that criticism, I would join the President if he had made that criticism of those who say parliamentarians don't read the law. Even though I would say that criticism is true in part because some parliamentarians simply don't read the legislation, not to mention the reports, which is why I usually ask for hard copies of the report, because I want to read them. Yeah. Anyway, President, when the Rules Committee meets, there's an area of the law that I believe my friend Senator Bryan would probably agree with me on. We don't agree often, but on this one I think he will.
I think Trim is more agreeable.
I see. The approach to judicial review, principle of judicial review. I believe the CPR, Civil Procedure Rules, require that this must be dealt with promptly. There's a promptitude in the filing for judicial review because delay can stop judicial review. But the courts need to act more promptly on judicial review. Sometimes they do, but there are cases that are long drawn out. This morning I had reason to look up one of those cases. And since it's still before the Supreme Court, so I'm not going to go into anything that may influence it. I'm just simply saying, I know that, so I want to make it clear, so don't worry yourself on that. This is a case of somebody terminated in 2008, saw judicial review in 2009. 2009. Amended the documents in 2011 with the permission of the court. That judicial review matter is still lingering in the court. And the date for hearing is next year, November. For a matter that's November 2025. For a matter that has its origin in 2008. And I therefore hope that those who come to form the rules, Minister, Senator Hill say you're blocking him. I don't know why he thinks that of you. You're surprised to see me here. Right? Yeah. So, issues like those can take a long time. Equally, there was a case that is resolved, so I can speak of it, where in July 2020, a former minister of government, took judicial review against the Integrity Commission, filed in the first week, at the end of the first week of July, and completed that judicial review against the Integrity Commission, completed by the end of July. Leave was refused. So There are times when it moves with dispatch, but too many times litigants, and sometimes poor litigants, they are grieved, have to wait too long for judicial review to be completed. Hence my request here for the Rules Committee, with the addition, take into account issues like that so people don't have to wait long. And I close with this one, President. There's a matter that I believe comes up in the Privy Council, and I can't influence the Privy Council from here, in November 20th, that as a gestation period in 2013, in which the workers had award, judgments in Supreme Court, judgment in the Court of Appeal awarded to them. So that judicial review matter, granted a little later than 2014, because the Supreme Court took a decision in 2018. Again, 6 years before it goes to the Privy Council. Can the Rules Committee set out to find ways to speed up judicial review? And I'm not talking about the current one. I believe that's next week. That comes up for hearing. I'm not talking about the current judicial review. May that also be dealt with speedily. But the reality I'm saying is that even though the civil procedure rules speak to forthwith things happening in judicial review, sorry? It's taking, I'm trying to see if I can bring Sophia in. So essentially, as far as we're concerned, we're not going to oppose this bill. We support it. I just need to make one clarification. Minister, it bothered me whether I should say this. But I'm going to say it. No, I'm going to say it. This bill, I've heard public comments on it. And those comments have not been positive towards the government. And I asked myself, should I be the one clarifying to the public that this bill is not about an incumbent joining the Rules Committee? And many people out there think it's about an incumbent joining the Rules Committee to deal with a certain matter currently before the court. I know I've heard programs where people are saying that. So I want to make it clear. We do not believe that that is what this is. But you'll be remiss if you think that people out there are not skeptical about this. And I'm saying there's no need for the public to be skeptical about this particular action. We support it because this applies to the DPP today, not yesterday, today and going forward. And Minister, it would be remiss of me not to notice that there's a new enactment clause. What I'm not sure is that this fits into 61 of the Constitution, but I'm not taking issue with it today. I'm not taking issue with it today. I mean on another occasion, because given 61(1) of the Constitution, this may be premature. But it's nice to see that the Governor General has finally assented to that piece of legislation after some time. So, but for that, as to whether it's constitutional enactment clause, we have no objection to the bill. I'm sorry my sister Fraser Bid doesn't arrive, but unless there are others on your side, we could move with dispatch to put this bill away. May it please you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Abka-Fitseni.
Thank you, sir. I propose to be very brief in my contribution today. I stand in support of the Judicature Amendment Act 2024. I believe it's a step in the right direction and another indicator of the willingness of this administration to put in place policies and make amendments via the legislative arm of the state to enhance the good functioning of the justice system in Jamaica. I am heartened that the administration has been pursuing a phased approach to improving the dispatch of service in the justice system. Initially, we moved to increase the remuneration of employees, workers in the justice system, to include judges, clerks of court, and other workers in the system. So that represents a willingness to invest in the human resources in the justice system, which can only augur well for the good functioning of the system. I am also heartened by the indication from the Portfolio Minister, the Honorable Delroy Chuck, that the administration is moving towards addressing some of the issues that have been raised by stakeholders in the system concerning the, let's be frank, the dilapidated infrastructure in sections of the court. I have absolutely no doubt that this administration will get it done. The fact of the matter is that the administration has moved to stabilize the Jamaican economy and has successfully done so, the economy so well, that we have been able to invest taxpayers' monies in building infrastructure across various sectors, including the medical sector, where we're building a children's hospital in collaboration with our international partners. And we have been able to invest in the building of the perimeter thoroughfare in Montego Bay, among other initiatives using, well, not pursuing loans, which is what would have been done, what was done by former PNP administrations. So I believe the fact that we are in a position where we are able to use sections of the budget to invest in building infrastructure across various sectors, including the transportation sector, the medical care system, is no doubt a testament to the good management of the Jamaican economy by the wholeness-led administration, despite major challenges which we have had to navigate, including the war in Europe and the COVID-19 crisis. And I have no doubt that a similar approach would be taken in terms of investing in the build-out, the upgrade, and the rehabilitation of infrastructure in the courts in Jamaica. So I note the concern, but I'm also heartened and optimistic that we will have the issues addressed. I listened to Senator Brown speak about the bad state of affairs in some courts in Jamaica, and he made a comparison with Trinidad and Tobago. I'm part of a generation that grew up watching Law and Order and the practice shows on television. And I had developed a romanticization of what a courtroom would look like. When I came back from Barbados, the Faculty of Law, in 2011, and went into the court system, I was a bit taken aback by the state of the system. It's a problem that has existed for decades. And I must be frank, what I saw took me so significantly aback that I thought to myself that perhaps I would not pursue a career in advocacy, but perhaps I should put myself in a position to influence the making of laws and policies. And here I am today. I am of the view that whenever we speak about the state of infrastructure in various sectors in Jamaica, it is incumbent on us, Senator Brown, to remind the current generation, how did we get here? How did we get here? And I know the FinSAC archives were published this week, and I welcome that. I believe that's a step in the right direction because it will serve as a reminder to current generations and future generations of the poor policies pursued by our former PNP administration that set this country back decades. And therefore, the current administration has to be judicious in terms of use of resources to upgrade certain sectors. It's not a blame game, but it is very important to recall how did we get here. And a large part of the problem, as the Portfolio Minister, Dr. Nigel Clark, adumbrated, is the iniquitous policies of the 1990s that saw the national debt spiral, and it has taken approximately 30 years to repair that damage. So I'd encourage Jamaicans to contemplate the issues that face us today in terms of allocation of resources to build out and upgrade various sectors in that context. And that as a society we resolve that never again will we go back to the days of, I can't find any other adjective but wicked policies that destroy the fabric of the Jamaican economy and set back the well-being of the Jamaican people and various sectors by many decades. Never again should we go back to those days of iniquitous policies by the People's National Party administration that destroyed the mitochondria of the Jamaican economy. The truth of the matter is, Senator Crawford, had former administrations in the 1990s and early 2000s been judicious in the use of resources and placed the people at the center of the policies, where a connected few didn't benefit and did well for themselves personally, while Jamaican people suffered. Some committed suicide due to the diabolical policies of the time. We would have avoided a debate currently in the Gordon House in 2024, where we are contemplating how best to allocate resources because so many sectors are in demand. That, I believe, is the lesson. So I share Senator Brown's concern and the concern of stakeholders in the justice system about the state of some infrastructure in the nation's courts. But I believe we must make the connections. And as I indicated earlier, I'm confident that the administration of Prime Minister Andrew Holness will continue along a path of pursuing prudent economic policies, whereby soon and very soon, we are able to allocate the necessary resources to upgrade various sectors, including the justice system. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Fitzhenry. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to colleagues on both sides for their contributions to the debate on this bill that is before us, especially to APCA.
Especially
I wanted to respond in particular to Senator Brown's concern that in making the Rules Committee more effective, we are, I believe the phrase he used was pouring new wine into old skins. The truth is that our justice sector has been massively, or rather has been a victim of massive underinvestment and lack of investment for decades, and it has therefore suffered serious deterioration. But this administration has not only been spending. He said we mustn't speak about the money, although if you didn't have it, you would certainly have a concern that it is not present and cannot be spent. So the fact that we have managed the economy well has not been done, again, to be able to boast about economic management, but to be able to deliver better services and better facilities to the people of Jamaica, and this has been underway. including in partnerships with strong development partners like the EU. They were part of our program to expand the Court of Appeal, which we did in 2018. We opened 3 new courtrooms, 13 judges' chambers, 2 lounges, an expanded registry, among other upgraded and modern facilities for the Court of Appeal. We have not only created a new family court in Chapelton, a new one in Trelawney, a new one in St. Anne opened just last month. And again, you know, this is modern 2-story building in St. Anne where there's privacy provided for the sensitive matters that are handled in a family court situation, provisions for that are in compliance with the Disabilities Act, a justice center beside it for the softer side, the more restorative side of justice. And this is part of the new justice complex that is going to be built, because there's a new justice complex that's also to be built in Manchester, another one that will be part of St. Thomas. There's a new courthouse being constructed as part of the new Morant Bay Town Center. It is underway, blocks going up as we speak. There is also, as a matter of fact, and welcome Senator Fraser-Binns, there's also significant effort that has been made in respect of the Clarendon Parish Court itself. There's the addition of technology to the courts, Mr. President. I know Senator Brown said that he had a situation where he was unable to hear and unable to be heard. But in many courts across the island, we have rolled out audiovisual equipment that allows for witness testimony for overseas. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the facilitator of that activity, which helps in delivering justice for people who suffer concerns here and need to travel, but want to proceed with their cases. We have ensured that improved equipment is provided for Hansard reporting, judicial reporting, and judges' ability to be able to take notes and provide them more easily and readily. We have also increased the number of judges. You know, I found an article, Mr. President, of where former President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Dennis Morrison of blessed memory, where he was saying that for 50 years, they had had 7 judges in the Court of Appeal. For 50 years, Jamaica, despite the massive expansion in the volume of matters before the court, we had only remained at 7 judges. And even though legislation had been passed in 2009 to increase, that the increase had not actually taken place. So I'm very pleased to announce that we have increased the judges in the Court of Appeal from 7 to 30, Mr. President, 30. The Supreme Court has increased 30. 13? 7 to 13, it's doubled, apologies. The Supreme Court, 30 to 42. So it's doubled in the doubled in the Court of Appeal from 30 to 42, and in the parish courts from 50 to 77. 1% short, Mr. So that we're not only looking at technology and we're looking at renovations, but we're also looking at the number of hands that are in the courts able to do the work, to deliver and dispense justice. Another thing that we have done is we added 22 judicial clerks. 22 judicial clerks in 2018, again to assist judges in the management of their work. And this is what has allowed us to get to a stage where backlog of clearance of backlog has improved by 100%, 100+% in different courts across the piece. So to look at the justice system and to not acknowledge the improvements that have taken place. Yes, there are bathrooms that need to be improved. Yes, there are air conditions that some have been replaced, some courthouses have been fixed, but there are places that require more support, more assistance. And it is quite clear from the discourse in the public domain over the week that there does need to be a more efficient relationship between the court administration services and the Ministry of Justice. And there also needs to be improvements to the procurement systems. It is clear at every level of government that the system has overcorrected itself. Procurement now has become a bar to necessarily achieving the most effective, the best value for money, and the most efficient provision of service delivery to the people of Jamaica. There needs to be a review of procurement processes at every level in order for us to be able to do what people need. It cannot be that Senator Brown is going to go and complain about the urinals and the bathrooms in a courthouse when there is $430 million unspent allocated to the renovation of justice centers, and for people to simply be told that is the procurement process, that is too long. It is something that really needs attention, Mr. President, and it is one that I hope it will receive in the shortest order. But again, having mentioned the improvements that are underway, the judicial centers that are underway. I've not even gotten into the mobile justice centers that actually take the dispensation of justice out to communities, that give counseling and support in legal aid. So the justice sector is improving, even though we don't have oil like Trinidad and never had the refining history that they had. So just to say that, Mr. President, the point that was made earlier that sound economic management has taken us to a place where we have been able to do more, it doesn't make us blind to the fact that there is still more to be done. I welcome, however, the support of colleagues for the bill which is before us. I reiterate that the bill provides for the holder of the office of the DPP to be made a member of the Rules-Making Committee in an ex officio capacity, that is, in the same way that the President of the Court of Appeal, that the Chief Justice, that these persons, by virtue of the office they hold, and whoever shall hold them, is made a member, that is a provision for this bill. I'm not sure if well, I certainly know, I did not hear it in the public domain before. I wasn't aware that this bill had gained such prominence, but I'm pleased to know that people of Jamaica are discussing this matter widely because it's important. The Parliament is the People's Parliament, and as it is stated here, be it enacted by the Parliament of Jamaica, by and with the advice and consent and House of Representatives of Jamaica, and by the authority of same, so that we are here as a result of the intentional actions of this Parliament, that we are able to say that the acts which we now pass in this House, the bills which we now pass in this Honourable Chamber, are stated to be under the power of this Honourable Parliament. I ask for the second reading of the bill.
Thank you very much, Minister. And although Senator Lambert Brown will always say that whoever sits in this chair should not participate, but I don't like when comments are made and the improvements that are made in Western Jamaica are not included. You forgot the Hanover Justice Center, for which the contract with the contractor was just signed last week. So, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Judicature Rules of Court Act, read a second time.
Sorry. The Senate will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. And it's a short bill, as was indicated. We can, Senator Brown? Good? All right, so I put clauses 1 through 3. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The question is that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendments. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendments. So, Minister.
Mr. President, might I ask for third reading of the bill?
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Judicature Rules of Court Act, read a third time and passed.
Minister.
Mr. President, it is not intended to do any further business today, but I believe Senator Longmore has would like to give notice of a motion.
Senator Longmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise motion for adjournment. I rise on the motion for adjournment to bring attention to Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This year's theme being We're Stronger Together. And I think it is not just around situations of dire health concerns that we would want to focus on a theme such as that. We're stronger together for almost anything you can conceive your mind. But especially when it comes to these matters, when it comes on to a diagnosis that is oftentimes considered as a real wake-up call to the state of your life, to the state of affairs, to the future of your life, you call on the strength of others, you call on the strength within yourself, and it is especially then that you appreciate the support that you have around you. We all can remember my story. And today, actually this year, I mark a special anniversary because it is 5 years since I have completed treatment. So 5 years remission. And hello, look at me now. Just look at me now. As I say, I describe myself as a thriver. I've gone beyond surviving and I'm now in my thriving. And that is what I would want to relate, that with strength together, thriving is possible. I just want to relate to today the efforts of the Jamaica Cancer Society. There are a number, as you know, this is one of the most active awareness months. There are so many initiatives that are happening. You have many cancer awareness runs that are happening. I think next week is the Pink Run, the ICII Pink Run. Today is actually World Mammography Day, where we're encouraging persons. And there's a meme going around where if you used to remember what a cassette recorder is, or if you used to remember when TV used to sign off, it's time for you to go and get your mammogram. And remember now that this is something that you should be doing on an annual basis, because as you age, the risk gets higher. But also, remember the simple breast self-examinations, especially after that special time of the month when you're most able to pick up on these signs. And we must also remember that our men are at risk. So also men, do those examinations, because when it is in a male, it is more severe. It is usually more lethal because it takes a longer time for them to pick up on it. So with all of that, I would want to just once again recognize the strength that I had within this space and want to convey it to those out there. If you are dealing with a diagnosis, choose your way to deal with it. Seek the help and support that you might need, but don't shy away from addressing the issue, because there is hope, there is a chance to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Longmore.
Thank you.
Senator Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unfortunately, I am not in my pink
And you have my permission to speak from a seat
today, and
that
I
is
thank
not
you
yours.
for the permission to speak from a seat other than my own. The pink shirt couldn't fit me this morning. I must be thriving myself. But I want to also recognize Senator Longmore not only as a survivor and a thriver, but also an example to many of sticking to the task and being confident in the outcome. I myself have been close to you through this space and have seen your excellent recovery. And you, my love, while looking at you, no one would even assume that an ailment or an illness has ever besetted you. And as a consultant, indeed. One way we can be better together is through a national health insurance. Because there are so many sufferers of cancer that has suffered from health poverty due to the cost of fighting that disease. And a national insurance allows for all of us to combine to create an avenue, especially for those less informed and less equipped financially, to be able to get the necessary treatment and to have the types of medical checkups to find it early. A lot of the delay has also been educated by a lack of financial capacity to where healthcare is not prioritized in spending. We can be stronger together with a national insurance. Another way to be stronger together is to work with our partners in medical care and medicine. There has been undue delay in the approval of medication in Jamaica. That has caused for us to be, in some cases, 3 iterations behind as it relates to the upgrading and improvements. And one of those realities is because we have not worked together in procedures where the FDA, the US, and the Canadian and the Europeans have approved drugs. We have determined that we must approve it ourselves as well. And like many countries with visas, we could always accept 2 of the 3 established countries in the world. If it is approved by the European Union and or the US and Canada, then it is reasonable for us to accept any 2 of the 3 and move to allow our people to access upgraded medication and not have the backlog that has caused for, by the time we approve item 5, they are at item 10. If we were to act the same way with the iPhone, we would have been at the iPhone 10 and not 16. We can work together. Well, based on his income, many phones, because I have very high income now. We can also work together and be stronger together by recognizing the importance of women to our society and to encourage lifestyles that can not only increase the ability to recover, but may also reduce the likelihood of the experience. I learned recently that the least exercised group in this country are women over 14 years old. Over 14 years old. And if you, 1/4, exercised. And if you look on any street, men playing football without an organized activity. Most MPs have a football competition, and very few would have a netball competition, and even then is way less entrance. If you just look at the national stadium for championships, many boys, especially after class 3, much less girls. And you have the football competition where all the boys participate. And then you have the cricket that all the boys participate. But how many girls are participating in exercise activity even at the school level? Our culture almost assumes that ramping is out for adolescent girls and adult girls. And so when a 40-year-old male can go and play basketball, for which we have made basketball, quote unquote, / netball courts dominated by basketball only. A lady who goes out to, not at the gym, but just to run around or to play, might be frowned upon by our culture. She'd be asked if she don't have any children to cater to. And so, when I saw the activity of Jamaica Moves, that marketing effort to encourage participation should be extended to a direct effort to have women and girls participate in more exercise activities, especially ones that are not paid gym membership organized. The final is to have centers of excellence in women care. I have met with the chairman for the Linstead Hospital to ask that we make a plan for the Linstead Hospital to be a center of excellence for female care. And I accept that men are also affected by breast cancer, but predominantly women. But what I also accept is we have a 47% single parent experience. And within that 47% single parent experience, the vast majority are women-led households. And therefore the impact of illness to our women becomes a greater impact to our society because of what that means for our children. One of the reasons identified by the University of the West Indies for absenteeism in school is mother's ailing, or mother's illness. Notice I never said parent's illness, because the mother being ill is oftentimes the sole provider being ill. Finally, I want to add what was discussed last week about mental health and stress and the impact that stress has on some of these ailments showing themselves and increasing their speed. Well, we too are stressed. But as we allow men to separate themselves from the family with economic benefit of doing so, it increases unfairly the stress on the women who then become everything to the family. And the ease in which they should have had the ability for the court to intervene has never been looked at in our society. And also getting, what do you call that, child support. And also getting the protection from abuse. All of those have created great stress and contribute to many ailments that we have faced. So I hope that we take this day as a day to work together to, firstly, have an insurance scheme, even if it is at the start directed to things like breast cancer initially, medication, treatment, testing. That we work together to have approvals of medication in a manner that causes us to have access to the best medication. That we work together to ensure that clinics and hospitals have the necessary equipment and doctors and gynecologists and radiologists and all of those things for adequate women health. That we work together to encourage a lifestyle of health among our women in nutrition and exercise. And that we work together to reduce the stresses of the society by realizing that family is a partnership for which the men should play an adequate role, whether by choice or by force through the courts. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Crawford. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Allow me to just express appreciation to both Senator Longmore and Senator Crawford for their interventions on this very critical issue. And just to share, by way of reminder, in respect of Senator Crawford's intervention that Minister Tufton had tabled a green paper on the national health insurance policy, which is a matter that we continue to look at. I know Minister Clark has spoken about the ability to create a fiscal balance and the fact that we have been seeking to make sure that the health sector is better able to provide screening services. And in fact, I believe it was either this month or last month that Minister Tufton opened the new mammogram machine, the mammography center in Cornwall Hospital. So the section that is functioning now has a mammogram service, so we are able to get screening free within the public health sector, not only in the east, in Kingston, but in the west as well. And I encourage women to reach out to the Jamaica Cancer Society as well. They're an NGO and they do offer services and they offer guidance as well as to where you can access service. On the matter of getting the best drugs, which really hit a point with me, because when we went to India, this is one of the issues that we were discussing. How is it that we can get better access in a G2G relationship, that we can get better access to groundbreaking pharmaceuticals that can leapfrog in the treatment of cancer, including in particular breast and prostate cancer, which are the most prevalent in women and men here respectively. So these are issues on which we are all together on, and areas that we are working on. There is increased support within the health sector for NCDs that include breast cancer, and I want to encourage MPs like Anne-Marie Vaz, who has actually made it a commitment that every year she takes women from her constituency who wouldn't normally be health-seeking in that regard and make sure they get screened in the high-risk range. And that, I think, is the kind of way in which MPs can, and caretakers, can touch lives, you know, that they can reach out in areas of great need and assist, as of course it will give rise to a course of care that is important, as Senator Longmore has emphasized. So just on that note, Mr. President, thank you for indulging me, because my point in standing is really to say that there is no further business to be done today, and to ask that... Oh, we are still on the motion? Oh, okay, well, I didn't get your signal. Shireen too? Mr. I was inspired.
And I looked around, and I didn't see any lights.
Either.
No, but just
right.
You get my attention.
Your indulgence,
Yes.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator
President.
Shireen
My
Golden
Senate
Campbell.
leader was quicker on her feet than I was. Mr. President, I too want to recognize my colleague, Senator Longmore. I didn't have the privilege of serving with her at the time she was in her battle. I came when things had gotten much rosier. A lot of people don't know this about Senator Longmore and I, though. We met each other, gosh, almost 35 years ago now, 30 years ago now, in that class of 1998 of the University of the West Indies Medical School. I did not continue on. I'm glad she did. But we join each other again. So I just want to recognize her, her toughness, her grit, and her ever positive interface. She has a thing she does on social media where she says, "Adjust the blessings." And no matter what it seems she has had to overcome and endure, she's always responded with, "Adjust the blessings," and I really do admire that. But Mr. President, I also want to offer some words in respect of Breast Cancer Month and the difficulties that come with breast cancer. One of the things that I think we women, and although it's not a disease that affects us alone, but I should say people in general, we don't remember sometimes about the early detection part of how you approach these kinds of diseases. You know, Jamaicans tend to have a culture where you sort of go along, and when you get sick, sometimes you stay in denial for a long time, you don't do anything about it, and diseases that could be treated and dealt with much earlier, with much better outcomes, we wait a long time, and it becomes much more difficult to deal with at that point. It's something that I want to commend to my fellow Jamaicans, that we please, as Senator Longmore says, I want to endorse what she said as well. Get, you know, do your screenings, do your mammograms, do your breast checks, pick it up early and pick it up quickly. And to that end, Mr. President, I want to recognize the work of the Minister of Health, Dr. Christopher Tufton, and his team at the Ministry of Health and Wellness. It was a great indicator to me when the Ministry of Health became the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And I note the sort of pivot of the programs of the Ministry of Health to not a disease-centered approach, not a treatment approach, but a preventative approach, an approach that looks at the patient when they interface with the hospital and clinic systems, whether it's through the community health programs, or, you know, in the emergency rooms, in the hospitals, whatever it is for non-communicable diseases. The Ministry of Health has now taken an approach that they are educating and looking at interventions at a point when we can change lifestyle, change nutrition, change habits to deal with disease, so that over the long run, we do not have the kind of incidence of disease that we have been experiencing over time. But I also want to acknowledge, you know, what Senator Crawford said is very true, and it has been borne out by science, that stress and the lack of management of stress leads to disease, and breast cancer and other cancers are types of diseases that are impacted by the levels of stress that we live under. I found it interesting, your note on girls over 14. Obviously, I'd be one of them, right? And you know, I can tell you in my 20s, I was very, very active, very, very committed to exercise. I must say that as I have approached midlife, I find myself making all kinds of excuses as to what busyness I am busy about, why I cannot get running down the road or on the bicycle. And I think it's an important point you made, because when we look at our lifestyles and we look at how we organize ourselves, the messaging is important. So we want kids to be active, and we want kids to take part in exercise, so that we don't get to a stage where diseases like breast cancer take us over. But how do we dress them when they go to school, the place where they should play on the playground? We put them in loafers, and we put them in ties, and we put them in the kind of clothing that is not, doesn't lend itself, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. It's not conducive to physical exercise and physical activity. The girls wear long skirts and A-line skirts and pleated skirts, and those are not the kind of clothes you run around on comfortably on the playground. So I think we have to think about some of these things in our society. One of the other things that that always struck me, Senator Longmore mentioned it in her State of the Nation presentation last year, was this concept of the work week and how we balance family and leisure time, and the importance of family and leisure time. And when I say that, of course, obviously, as a business owner, I'm immediately thinking about, but what's the level of productivity? So there's a conversation we need to have as a nation Because all of these things are joined up. When you talk about disease and the health of a nation and the wellness of a nation, how you organize, how you work, how you organize, how you engage family, spiritual enhancement, how you organize all these things, security, makes a difference to your physical and mental health. So in this month, I hope that we will be a little bit more mindful. I'm going to try and get out on the road this weekend. I think it'll be symbolic. And I hope we're a little bit more mindful about these things, thinking about, in a sort of deliberate way, how we ensure our physical and our mental health, both as individuals and as communities. I have a conversation in my house with my children all the time. If you go to fix a slice of bread for yourself, turn around and ask the rest of the household members if they'd like a slice as well. Don't ignore your community. So as I close, Mr. President, this is that symbolic month that we recognize those who have fought, those who are fighting, and those who had fought. And I want to just make a special mention. I won't call her last name, but because I've had such close contact with her recently, my Aunt Wendy in Florida, I just want to recognize her because she has fought multiple battles and won them all. So thank you, Mr. President, for your indulgence.
Thank you, Senator Gordon Campbell. Senator Gabriela Morris.
Thank you, Mr. President. And to speak from a seat other than my own.
Yes, you have that permission.
Thank you. I want to join in with colleagues in recognizing Breast Cancer Awareness Month and the importance of this month for millions of people around the world. I think that each of us in here know, or each if not most, would know somebody that has gone through an experience with breast cancer. And I want to join colleagues as well in recognizing Senator Longmore, who I wasn't in the chamber at the time, but I came to know you because of your story. And I've always appreciated how you've not just made it a personal experience, but you've been a voice for other people going through, and I believe that it has strengthened many. So kudos to you. Mr. President, I also want to add a few remarks because I think that we have underscored the mental strain that breast cancer places not only on survivors, but also on families and communities. And I think that we also have to look very carefully at the strain that it places on our health sector, our public health sector as well. I was reading and I noted that we have a deficiency of radiologists in the public health system. And this really impacts how well we're able to give service to persons who have breast cancer. And this is something that I would like to see us rectify. Senator Crawford spoke of the idea of a center, a wellness center of excellence for women. And I think it is indeed an idea that we should explore. Because when we look at the statistics, and when we even go further to look at the gamut of reproductive issues that are affecting our women in this country, I think that there is a need for a space that is geared towards catering to them. And so that is something that I would love to see us explore, hopefully not in the far, far, far future, Minister, but as soon as possible. because we've seen how many persons are actually not just ailing, but dying from these illnesses. And so that's one thing that I want to mention. The second thing is the importance of diet and what we eat. So, President, I intended to speak on the school nutrition policy because I believe that we have to start to change how we, as people of African descent, I'm going to say, we engage with food. And I say this personally as well, because I struggle with it, as do many Jamaicans. And there has been a link identified with diet and illnesses such as breast cancer. And there are many women out there who, in trying to manage the disease, they struggle with accessing healthy options. Many of them struggle with even fixing their minds to think about healthy options, because that's just not how many of us were cultured. And so I believe that there's need for investment in a type of educational program that centers around reframing how we engage with food and how we structure our diet to mitigate against the effects of many of these non-communicable diseases. Mr. President, in closing, I also want to encourage colleagues as well as persons who are watching the proceedings this morning to support. You spoke about the importance of community, and while we might not be close up to it, I think it is imperative that each of us play our part in some way to support the work that is being done. The Pink Run is October 27, and it is something that I would normally support from my days at university too. This year I won't be able to, but I would encourage everyone as much as possible to support. Krispy Kreme is also having a promotion. I'm not going to eat the donut, but if you can, you should support as much as possible.
Delroy to a race.
And Damian is challenging Senator Williams to a race at the Pink Run. Yes. It is. But they're taking donations for the Jamaica Cancer Society. So give it to the Jamaica Cancer Society, right? And there's also, I would like to mention, a special woman. She has done this year after year. She's Janet Richards. She's from Montego Bay, Janice, and she has consistently been a part of the effort to support survivors. And I want to acknowledge her work today and congratulate her and encourage her to continue the good work that she does. So all in all, Senator Longmore, you spoke about the theme, Stronger Together. I saw somewhere else a theme, Thrive 365, and I think it is also a fitting theme. And I want to encourage everyone who might be going through with this illness to continue to thrive. And those who are around, continue to provide support and community as we help each other and aim to be stronger together. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you very much. And it's left now to you, Minister.
Pardon me? I'm ready. No, I can't speak. Nobody
Yes,
else
ma'am.
is. Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm just going to quickly say, that in respect of the radiologists, that they are among the specialist areas for which the 600 scholarships were provided this year over a period of time to actually address areas of deficiency in the health sector. So specialist nurses, etc., but radiology is one of the areas. So we take your point and agree with you that it is something that needs assistance. And in terms of education, the Know Your Numbers campaign is exactly about this. Know what your sugar level is like, get your screenings, do your own self-tests, learn how to do them. And now it's easier. Once upon a time, you would have to go to Jamaica Cancer Center or something like that, or go to a health center. But now you can go online and you can just Google Jamaica Cancer Center or breast self-exam guidelines, Jamaica Cancer Society, sorry, or breast self-exam. You can just Google these things and they will actually set out in very simple language what you can do in order to do your own self-screening. So based on what has been said here today, we are leaving this chamber, Mr. President, to do a little more exercise, right? A little more movement, so that people's pink shirts can fit them again. We are going to avoid the donuts. We are not going to have a good relationship with the donuts. We're going to break up with the donuts. We're ending our relationship with donuts, and we are going to watch our salt. And together we can be healthier. This is something that we should actually put ourselves to as a Senate. If I were available to do the pink run as well, I'm away on government business again. But I encourage as many members as possible of the chamber to go out and support breast cancer, support the walk, and all the support that they give as well. So thank you, Mr. President. It is truly now not intended to do any further business. Might the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed?
All right, I found should I say a debate? But it had a lot of information that certainly the public will make much use of. All right, so it is that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed. Those in favor? Those against? The Senate stands adjourned.
As Minister of Justice, I appeal to you, obey the road code, pay your ticket on time, and only go to court if the ticket is being contested. Close to 80% of matters coming to the parish courts are for traffic breaches. Let's work together to make our roads safe and ease the burden on our courts.
Predictable, stable and low. Targeting inflation to boost the economy. BOJ committed to Jamaica and the economy. And the best way forward is using an inflation targeted strategy. Keep the rates them low, stable and intact, so consumers can buy more goods with them cash. Committed to make the economy grow. Predictable, stable and low. Inflation targeting the way to go.
Not allowed to speak for myself. They make all the decisions.
I'm not allowed to go anywhere by myself. They're afraid I'll escape.
See how my hand and face bruise up? Them beat me cause me say me tired.
I'm only 13, but they said if I work harder, they will allow me to go home.
Me no have no birth paper, no ID. Them take all of my documents, them.
Victims of human trafficking are all around us and they need our help. Forced labor is one of the many forms of human trafficking. If you see something, say something. Report suspected cases of human trafficking. Call the nearest police station, 119 or 888-PROTECT.
of your money is now tax-free? Know that the income tax threshold has been increased. Your government is looking after you responsibly, so our economy can do even more for you.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Never drive under the influence. It's essential to avoid operating a vehicle if you have been drinking. Refrain from taking certain types of prescription or substances that may otherwise make you impaired. This is a road safety tip by the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica.
Our pensioners are our society's backbone, and we want to make sure they are cared for. That is why the annual pension exemption and age relief exemption has been increased to $250,000 each. You have worked hard for your country, and we want you to have a little more peace of mind in retirement. Your government is caring for you.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm Theodore Henry. For decades, countless Jamaicans have taken advantage of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security's Overseas Employment Program.